Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords, and this here is Domino, of course. I'm surprised to find her here. She doesn't often come when I'm doing a video. Oh, and now she says she's gonna fuck off. There she goes. She's gone now. So there we have it. That was a brief little visit. Luckily today she decided not to try to have me murdered. But unlike, if you want to watch Domino viciously attacking me, watch the previous video to this one, the review of Wretched Folklore. So it's a fun thing to see. Today, I wasn't going to talk about this originally. You know, one of the things I'm trying to figure out, it's basically been now, this is the 20th anniversary of me being the RPG Pundit, like this month basically is, if I've got my dates right. And so basically, I've been doing this job for 20 years now, and I'm trying to think of ways in which in what way should I, if I should at all, commemorate the fact that I've been doing this for 20 years now, right? It's so weird how long it's been, and that it's been something that has been, you know, a part of my life for that long, but also like how much it has changed, you know, like when I started, I was the only guy voicing a critical position against the kind of the infiltration of leftist ideology into the hobby. And of course back then, the stuff that was happening back then was so much less than it has been since then, right? And it seemed, I saw the enormous danger in it, but it was so mild compared to all the stuff that happened later. Anyways, I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I might do a live stream. I might have video. I'm not even sure exactly what I would talk about. I guess I could tell my life story, but I don't know if that would be so interesting. So yeah, I'm thinking about it. And so I was trying to figure out for today what video I should make. It's been a pretty slow news week in RPGs. There was one item though, and at first I thought this wasn't even worth talking about. Some people were saying, I literally had people saying, you should do a video about how the Wizards of the Coast is bringing back Dark Sun. Okay, so for those of you who are perhaps not aware, Dark Sun is a setting from 2nd edition AD&D. It came out in the very early 90s. And it was very popular in certain ways because, first of all, it was the weirdest official setting ever made, I think. I mean, there are some parts of Mystara that are weirder, maybe, and some elements of Planescape you could say are almost as weird. In fact, it's kind of a toss-up between, like, whether Dark Sun or Planescape was the most Gen X RPG or D&D setting of all time, right? Like, they were both, like, peak Gen X, right? There's the Dark Sun, post-apocalyptic aesthetics, Planescape with the punk aesthetics. Both of them have like this really edgy aspect to it, edgy art. You're playing rebels in both of those campaigns in their kind of default state, right? Those were the settings theoretically of my generation, right? And it's interesting that neither of them have managed to make a successful return. Like they did a Planescape book recently that was just complete garbage, right? It was just total garbage. And now it's incredible to me that there are people who like Dark Sun a lot. Now, I liked Dark Sun a little. I liked Planescape even a little less. I wasn't a gigantic fan of either of them. But there are people who are huge fans of Dark Sun that are so excited because in Unearthed Arcana, and the supplement thing that Wizards does, they put in some stat blocks for 4 particular classes that are very clearly Dark Sun classes, right? Like the Preserver, the Defiler, the Gladiator, and I forget the name of the Priests of the Dragon, right? I think they might have been Templars or something. It might have been called that. But anyways, those 4 are given like basic stats for the new 2024 5.5 edition. And people see that, obviously, as a teaser, possibly a trial balloon, or maybe a prediction or a hint that Wizards of the Coast is going to try to do a Dark Sun setting. That is quite a twist because only like, what, 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, Wizards was saying we can never do Dark Sun again, right? It's impossible. And the reasons for that were because they were claiming that Dark Sun was deeply problematic as a setting, right? As most Gen X things are to these goddamn ridiculous, pathetic, totalitarian millennials, right? So, because they're saying, well, you know, because it had like people being oppressed, and it has slavery, and slavery is a huge thing. It has like races that are weird and half races, you know. We don't approve, you know, the modern left hates race mixing, right? Like their forefathers in the KKK, the current day woke left believes that their property should not mix with the others, right? So they despise mixed race classes. That's why they killed the half orc and the half elf, right? That's why they're gonna kill. They would have to kill the mule and the half dwarf. Those would have to go, right? Or the half giant and the half dwarf in Dark Sun, right? And so basically a whole bunch of things in Dark Sun would have to go, right? Like you can't really have slavery anymore, right? And here's the crazy part of it. Now this is the thing that those of you who were not there at the time probably don't get. Dark Sun was not presented when it first came out as some kind of badass macho survivalist, like Conan-esque type setting. It wasn't. It was presented as a left-wing setting. It was openly presented in left-wing terms. I was there. I remember when it came out. Right? I remember how they were promoting it. And essentially, Dark Sun was promoted first and foremost as an environmentalist dark fairy tale of what will happen if we don't protect our planet. Right? Because that is one of the essential parts of Dark Sun. Dark Sun is a planet that is a world that is essentially dying, right? It's mostly desert at this point. It's been completely ecologically ruined. And that ecological ruination happened because of the greed of humans who wanted to get power by devastating the environment. Okay, and that was the message. It was an environmentalist message in the early 90s. All right? That was number one. That was a left-wing message. I remember a lot of people that looked at that and said, "Oh yeah, this is just propaganda, right? It's Democrat propaganda, or liberal propaganda." So like because to them they thought, you know, like, I remember this came out right around the time that Rush Limbaugh had first shown up, right? So it's just a perfect moment. It was an ideological declaration to the left, a declaration saying, hey, we should protect our environment, right? That was number one. Number two, it had this horrible setting full of oppressors, right? And it was an explicitly left-wing thing in the early 90s that if there's a place that's full of oppressors, that there's slaves, right? Slavery in a game, it's because you're going to go and free the slaves. And in fact, the very first Dark Sun adventure, the first campaign for it, the one that most people played, starts with you liberating a city from its dragon prince, king, whatever. It's from its ruler, its evil wizard ruler, and liberating all the slaves. And then you have like one free city on Athos, right, in the world of the Dark Sun. So these were both viewed essentially as liberal conceptions, right? Now, of course, freeing slaves was also seen as completely, like, back then, nobody had, like, there's always, no, freeing the slaves, that's wrong. No, nobody did that, right? Nobody was opposed to this, right? The fantasy that people try to present today is that if you have an RPG and there are slaves in that setting, it must be because the person who wrote it and anyone who's playing must love slavery, and they must be super excited about having slaves in the make-believe game. Which is ridiculous, right? It's just beyond ridiculous. It's crazy, right? It is an insane thing to think, okay? and it always was, right? Like, so back then, obviously, everybody agreed that, yeah, of course, yeah, that's what you're doing. In Athos, you're trying to somehow save the environment, but that doesn't seem too plausible, right? So mostly you're trying to survive in this terrible environment. And the good thing that your characters do, if they're good characters, is free slaves, right? That is the goal. It is a positive thing to do, to go and free the oppressed, right? And that's something that was seen as a neutral thing by most people, but it still had a kind of left-wing coding in the 1990s, right? This was a concept that sort of fit in there, right? In the early 90s even, right? So the idea that now in 2025, or when 2023, whenever they said it, that Dark Sun was so appalling that it could never return, that tells you nothing about Dark Sun. It tells you everything about how completely twisted and Stalinistic the left has become, right? The left has now become so warped that something that their own party approved of, 30 years earlier, is now appalling to them. It's appalling to the point that it must be censored. That's the difference. So, how come it's changed now, if it has changed? Now, first of all, this could just be somebody just dicking around with people in the Unearthed Arcana article, right? I don't even know I think Jeremy Crawford used to write it, right? Now he's gone, so it's not him. So it's someone even less talented than him, which is incredible. And I think that it's entirely possible that this is just some kind of a little tease, right? But it is also possible that it is something else. And I was kind of racking my head about this for a while now, trying to work out, like, why? What is this? Why would they put this teaser, right? Because, and I wasn't sure, right? And I think, don't get me wrong here. I'm going to say something. It's going to be sort of surprising, but don't get too excited by it, right? I think that this is a kind of a test bubble, and they are trying to judge the reactions. And this is a very, very extremely tiptoeing, soft touch approach of trying to get it's a test to see whether WotC should try to pretend to be more based now, right? So a ton of corporations are switching around, right? There are corporations that a couple of years ago were showing people bending the knee to the BLM or whatever, and now, or having transgender people sell their beers. They're now trying to flip around and go, oh no, yeah, we're based. We're America, fuck yeah, and the eagle and apple pie, all that stuff. We like guns. Yeah, we like them guns. So they're trying to do this because they need the money, right? Because they went woke, they got broke. Few people got as broke as Wizards of the Coast did with the 2024 edition of D&D. It is just catastrophically bad. It's catastrophically failing. And now they've got to make a turn of some kind, right? But the problem is, they have a tremendous internal opposition, first of all, right? Everybody there that's still working there, most of the people there are not RPG gamers, right? They don't play, they don't like RPGs. They've never cared about RPGs. They got the job there through nepotism from friends that brought them in. Most of them are like I said, they're feminist bloggers or vegan cookbook writers or young adult novel authors, right? They see this as their paycheck while they're doing activism and other stuff. They don't really want to do a lot of work. They certainly don't want to have to learn more about RPGs. So all of that is a problem. And of course, all of them are extremely, extremely left-wing. So they're going to be deeply opposed to any attempted ideological turn. And I think maybe this thing in Unearthed Arcana was the most delicate of test balloons to see what the reaction would be from gamers and judge by that if it's going to like, if it might be worthwhile, if actually like, even if it meant they'd have to like fire a bunch of people, which they probably want to do anyways, right? Like at this point, I think most corporations realize that they've spent the last 5 to 10 years hiring people that have been absolutely destroying their companies, and they need to get rid of them. So they're probably not going to be crying a lot about that. But besides that, if they need to, try to make a pretend act of being based, right? And I say pretend act because I think all the people at the highest echelons of this company and most other companies, right? Like I'm to be fair, I don't know enough about American Eagle or something like that. Maybe they were totally based and really meant it. Or maybe they were just, they had the madmen there and they said, yeah, you want an ad that's going to like drive everybody nuts, make you super famous and make you heroes of the based right? Do this with Sydney Sweeney, right? Like that's totally possible, right? And I think it's more likely that in most cases, right? So unless a company has like always been on the right side, I'm going to assume that if they're suddenly becoming based, it's performative. And that is part of the problem. Like, first off, I'm not sure that Unearthed Arcana article did generate enough interest. I don't think. I mean, it didn't have a huge backlash from the left, which is interesting. Which shows you how demoralized the left is. Like, I saw very little cases of people saying, no, they can't do this. Wizards of the Coast must not do Dark Sun, right? Like in panic, right? I didn't see that. Maybe if you did, let me know in the comments, but I didn't see it. But at the same time, I saw very little enthusiasm from other gamers. Like, there were some Dark Sun people who were like, oh, we might finally get it back, right? And again, be very careful what you wish for, because even though this sounds like okay, if Pundit is right, and they're trying to do a based version of, then it'll be good, right? It must be. But here's the thing: if you're not really based, you have no idea how to do based stuff, and we see this all the time, right? Like you saw this in 2024. When the Democrats didn't have a single normal heterosexual man in their entire party. They did have one. There was not one of them there. And that must be true, because if they had even one normal heterosexual man, that guy would have been able to tell them how they were doing everything wrong. And they weren't, right? All of the men in the Democratic Party were apparently like, flouncy Broadway actors who would like dress up in cowboy shoes, and they would sit like very effeminately cross-legged on top of the back of the pickup truck, right? And say, I'm voting for her, And that was the tactic that they had to bring in the men. And now they've got like, I don't know, some fat trans person that's going around colleges, and that's their tactic. Like, they have no idea. They don't know how to do it, right? And it's the same anywhere that they're going to try to fake being based. And I mean, you've seen this already in a lot of like TV shows where what they're trying to do is like, the ones where on the commercial, it looks like, oh, this could be good. Yeah, that looks pretty. Oh yeah. Oh sure, King Harold and William the Conqueror. Yeah, look at that. Oh, and the two main actors are even like actual English guys. And then like you end up having like a whole bunch of black characters that just appear there out of nowhere. And Edward the Confessor is actually a psychotic maniac who murders his own mother, right? Like, in complete contradiction to all of history. So, like, they don't know how to do it. They don't know. They don't know intellectually how to do it, and morally they are incapable of it because it requires a certain morality to present a setting that has moral convictions. The left used to have moral convictions, right? We didn't agree with all of them, but like the left that created early 1990s Dark Sun, like the lefties at TSR, who had, said, well, I'm worried about the environment. Yeah, let's do a thing where we show like the devastation and all that, right? Like that, it had conviction, right? Because what are you doing? You're crusaders in that setting. You're trying to set right the evil of slavery, and then you're like trying also to somehow find a way to repair the world from like an unbelievable level of ecological devastation, right? And to survive and to protect the people you love, and all those things applied, right? The left doesn't understand any of that, right? They can't, and that's why they can't tell any stories, really. That's why everything they produce is such garbage. And so if these guys are just like, I don't believe that there are people in the executive level of WotC, any much less on like the bullpen level that is, like I said, full of the vegan writers, like none of those people have the slightest bit of morality, and none of the people in the executive level have the slightest bit of morality. None of them would be able to understand how to make a good Dark Sun setting. And they will screw it up, undoubtedly, right? Like, to me, it is like impossible that they wouldn't screw it up. So even though that is my analysis of this, is that I think that this was an attempt, a test bubble for them to decide if they should try to act based or not. But you can't act based. You either are based or you're not. And if they have no one who's actually based there, what they produce is going to be complete dog shit. I'm sorry to say that. On that terrible disappointment to all of you Dark Sun fans out there, I am the RPG Pundit. But hey, here's an alternative. Sword and Caravan. Okay, Sword and Caravan is medieval adventures on the Silk Road. It's set in the real world in the 12th and 13th centuries, at the turn between the 12th and the 13th centuries, between the Third Crusade and Genghis Khan. And you can go traveling in desert environments, having all kinds of adventures against strange and terrible monsters. You can have religious elements. You can have social conflicts. There are wars. There are city-states that are run by terrible overlords, and some good ones. And there's dark sects and sinister cults. There's all kinds of amazing stuff in Sword and Caravan that has, in some ways, a Dark Sun kind of theme. So do check that out. Check out Sword and Caravan, Medieval Adventures on the Silk Road. It's a setting book. It's used for like Lion and Dragon. It's useful for like Lion and Dragon or Baptism of Fire. But you could also use it with any OSR game. Social Encounters along the Silk Road. There's a incredibly, like, this was just supposed to be a PDF originally, and instead it became like a huge seller. So there are people that want it in print. So that's the print version right there. It's very cheap. And it's a system that lets you have a guideline as the DM for managing social interactions by role-playing, not by social skills, not by skill checks, but by determining certain modifiers of what the person that your character is trying to talk to has in terms of their impressions, in terms of the context of the situation, and modifying that with the reaction roll system for a whole variety of different things, whether you're like engaging in a debate, trying to find information, trying to intimidate someone, etc., etc. If you're trying to haggle, all kinds of stuff. If you're trying to seduce someone, they're all in that little book, and it's a great little guide that can help you if you're an OSR guy and you do not want to just have like a diplomacy skill where a guy rolls a d20 plus he's got plus 15 in the skill, so he could like convince God of anything, right? And then the whole game collapses, because why would you even bother role playing it when you just roll a die? If you don't like that, here's the alternative. It's even useful if you're like actually playing new school D&D, because you could just scrap the all of the social skills and do something better that's based directly on role-playing your character. And finally, the Old School Companion 2. This is a set of 28 medieval authentic adventures that are set in Europe, as opposed to Sword and Caravan, which is set in the Middle East. But they're just as good. They're very exciting sandbox adventures. Be sure to check out all these. Check out also the Pundit Files. Pundit Files, the current issue is oh crap, what is the current issue? I remember it's Space Opera Locations 2, I think. Oh no, it's the Monsters of the Mysterious East for Sword and Caravan. Actually, it's a whole set of like, there's 11 very old Chinese mythological creatures that you can use in any campaign, right? Any OSR campaign. But it's especially for Sword and Caravan, actually. It's for if you get to the Far East in Sword and Caravan. Really weird creatures there. You're going to appreciate it. You can only get the Pundit Files at the Red Room. There are like 38 issues, I think, now or something like that. I've lost count. I've written so many of them, and I have to keep writing them, so I forget what number we're on. But we've got a ton of them, and every single one just costs $3.50. So if you can get $3.50, you can get at least one issue of the Pundit Files. Be sure to check that out. And finally, check out The Last Vikings, my latest book. It's out. It's been out for a while now. It's been doing so well. And there are people playing campaigns of it. They're saying it's fantastic, right? I've been using some of the material in my existing Baptism of Fire campaign. You guys are going to love it if you like Vikings. I mean, unless you really hate Vikings. But if you don't hate Vikings, if you think they're kind of cool, The Last Vikings is probably the best Viking campaign setting ever. Okay, the most authentic for sure. I'll say that absolutely. All right, and I guess that's everything for today. Currently smoking. This is a Nirap Hawk build. So beautiful, and Argento Roots.